You all asked for it. You all wanted it. Real bad. No more teasing this recipe on Instagram. This is the cinnamon raisin sourdough loaf.
This is my own recipe that I created and tested over the last month.
Oh my god, it smells so good!
A quick word about this recipe. It's not a beginner sourdough. This recipe assumes you already know the basics of making sourdough, including having and maintaining a mother starter and creating a levain. I don't go into that in this recipe, but I will do a step-by-step base sourdough recipe in a separate video.
So where this recipe actually begins is at the autolyse period. So what I'm not including in this video, and if you're a sourdough baker, you know this step already, you should already have a levain that you started and fed hours ago, and it's reaching its peak maturity, but it's not quite there. That's that phase where you start the autolyse, which is what we're gonna do right now.
Here's the breakdown of all the ingredients. Screenshot this so you can follow along with the video.
So we're gonna need the glass bowl onto the scale. I use two kinds of flours in this one. Bread flour, which if you're making any kind of bread, you need bread flour. 350 grams of bread flour into the bowl. Now spelt flour. I am obsessed with the way spelt flour smells and works and tastes. Oh my god. So this is about 150 grams of spelt to get us to that 500 gram mark. These measurements will yield one loaf of bread. I don't have the containers or the space in my fridge or anything like that to make huge loaves of bread. Just kind of mix it all together with your hands. There we go. We've got 500 grams of flour in this bowl. We're gonna add in the water that's been sweetened with a little bit of honey. This is the water that's been sweetened with just about a teaspoon of honey. I put it in the microwave for just a few seconds. I wanted to get this just a hair warmer than room temperature. It really helps the autolyse to come together if the water is on the slightly warmer side than room temperature. So since this is an 80% hydration loaf and we're factoring in the water that's already in the starter, to this autolyse in this bowl right now, we're gonna pour in 390 grams of water sweetened with honey.
When I started testing this recipe, I struggled with having just pockets of sweetness here and there. This helps evenly distribute a light sweetness throughout the dough. This is very difficult to do with one hand. You know the drill here. Mix this until fully incorporated.
As it comes together, you'll notice that it's a very sticky, shaggy mess. Like, smell this. That sweet smell, that sweetness, that's the spelt. Cover the bowl, put it into a warm spot in the house. I usually use the oven with the light on. I might put this actually outside next to my levain in the garden because it's a nice 85 degrees today. I like to do my levains outside, let them rise outside because it's probably not a real thing, but in my head I just like the idea that the garden and the temperature outside is helping the levain rise instead of in my kitchen. There's something more cute and magical about the garden doing it. That's probably not a thing, but anyway. So we've got about an hour, so right on my phone.
Look at that extensibility in the dough. This is why a longer autolyse is always key. Always. Don't skip it.
Put the entire autolyse mixture onto the kitchen scale and we're gonna measure out 100 grams of your starter, of your mature, ripe starter. And then you do the stretch and fold, which is the classic way. Every sourdough baker knows how to do this. It's the stretch and fold.
We'll do 4 sets of stretch and folds, each 30 minutes apart. Don't forget to rotate the bowl after each fold, working around it until you get to where you started. You know this drill.
On the second stretch and fold, so after that first 30-minute break, this is where we add the salt.
This is technically the third stretch and fold, but we're actually going to do a lamination technique here instead. Tip the dough out onto a clean, unfloured work surface. Unfloured is very important.
This is the really fun part. So, to laminate, you just want to stretch this out. We're trying to create a big surface area. This is the 75 grams mixture of cinnamon and dark brown sugar.
I found that stretch and folds alone didn't evenly distribute the cinnamon sugar and the raisins, and I wanted this loaf to have even swirls throughout. Half the sugar mixture goes on this layer, and you want to make sure to coat it evenly. Now, I don't have a measurement for these because the amount of raisins in your loaf is really up to you. I like to put a lot of raisins. I want every bite to have a juicy raisin. Then do a letter fold, each side folded 1/3 towards the center.
I don't know if you can see that, but I'm sealing the ends right there. That's super important because the contents of this little pocket now are so dry that it's actually not really going to incorporate very easily at first. From the top. Stretch, fold that over. This part's a little bit tricky because we've got this dry pocket now. So we have to do another lamination set, but you're gonna pull even more gently. With all that added sugar and cinnamon in that dry pocket, it's gonna be easier to rip this than it was when we did the first layer. The remaining sugar and cinnamon goes on this.
Alternatively, you could skip this second lamination layer and just roll the dough over itself after you add the sugar mixture like you would a cinnamon roll. Try it both ways and see which one you like better. "30 minutes later, and it's our final stretch and fold. This time, the dough will not be as extensible as before. It'll break more easily, so really pay attention to where the dough is telling you its limits are. And then, we enter the bulk fermentation stage. Let it sit for 3 hours in a warm spot.
Go to dinner, go to the beach. If you live near one, go take a walk, go work out, go take a nap, I don't know. Go do something for 3 hours and forget about this. I'm getting cozy, I'm about to go to bed, but there's a few more steps that have to be accomplished before I can actually go to sleep. It's pretty much doubled in size. There's not a ton of fermentation activity happening on the surface, but that's because we put a lot of sugar and enriching things in there. This step is called the bench rest, which is basically what it sounds like. We're gonna let the dough rest on the workbench for about 20 minutes. Take it, fold it over itself, and let it sit there. Shaping is definitely the trickiest part of this process. I wholeheartedly admit I'm not very expert at just yet.
My shaping technique here is similar to the stretch and fold. I do that 2 or 3 times depending on how the dough is behaving, forming a circle the whole time. It's still delicate at this stage, as before. See? If this happens to you, do another stretch and fold and cover the spot. Then we're shaping this into a boule. With lightly floured hands, rotate the dough while simultaneously tucking the ends under itself. We're trying to create a lot of tension and form a really taut surface. Just have to get this on. This banneton. Oh, God. Oh, this infernal thing. Oh my God. Heavily flour the banneton with white rice flour. You could use regular flour if that's all you have, but white rice is generally the best. And finally, I do this really cool stitching technique that I learned from all the bakers I follow on Instagram. It really helps to add that extra bit of strength in the dough. Then it goes into the fridge for a long, cold overnight proof, at least 12 hours.
Good morning. Today is the day we're gonna bake this bread. First things first, you have to preheat the oven, 475 degrees Fahrenheit. There she is. Ta-da. Just gently pull that off.
Slash your boule however you want. This is supposed to be a double cut, but I did it really poorly. Into the Dutch oven that's been heating up in the oven. Trim the excess parchment paper.
I'm gonna set my timer for 20 minutes. after 20 minutes, we're gonna go in, remove the top, and let it sit for another 30 minutes in the oven.
After 30 minutes, your loaf will look like this.
Now, when this first comes out of the oven, you are going to be tempted to cut it. Don't. You have to resist the temptation to cut into the bread when it's still warm. You must let the bread come to room temperature before you cut into it. It's not too sweet. It's just the right amount of sweet and sugar. There's so much cinnamon flavor. So I was able to recreate this effect and this result this was now the third time that I've made it. That's how I know that I have a recipe that I think will work for you guys in your kitchen. I might list cinnamon raisin sourdough, my cinnamon raisin sourdough, for a last meal situation. But do let me know in the comments below if you make this recipe. Tell me how it worked out. Go on Instagram, tag me in your final loaves. I want to see if you're getting the same exact result that I did. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I have baking videos that come out every single week, including the Downton Abbey Baking Challenge, as well as Cook Like a World Traveler. But that is it for me. Now is the time to eat and stop talking. Enjoy!